In 1969, things were not going well for the United States of America. The nation's pain persisted in the seemingly endless disaster of Vietnam and on the campuses of great universities and in the streets of major cities. The generation gap was as wide as ever, and inflation seemed to be on an uncontrollable spiral upward. The nation needed something good to happen to it. It got something great. Three remarkable men brought joy and pride home from a distant place. Their voyage was shared by more than 600 million other residents of this planet, a worldwide audience that watched the astronauts and their wonderful machines on these wonderful machines. Television took us all to the moon and brought us back enthralled. This is the story of that trip and the television coverage that created, for a time, a true global village. This is a record of what we saw and heard of the epic journey when people first stepped on unearthly soil. The main characters in that drama known as Apollo 11 are Neil Armstrong, then 38 years old, a combat veteran Navy flyer and test pilot; Edwin E. Buzz Aldrin Jr., 39, an Air Force colonel; and Michael Collins, 38, a lieutenant colonel in the Air Force.
Good morning. Man is about to launch himself on a trip to the moon with the expectation of landing there. Man going to the moon here this morning from this Florida launch complex aboard that Saturn rocket. The rocket will put the men into orbit 115 miles above the Earth for 1.5 orbits, and then the third stage will put them on their way toward the moon. Shortly after that point is reached, they will extract the lunar module from the third stage rocket, and then they'll be on their own on the way for their 3-day voyage to the moon. They will get there on Sunday. They will make the landing on Sunday afternoon. And after a 10-hour rest period, Armstrong and Aldrin are scheduled to set foot on the moon on early Monday morning, Eastern Daylight Time. We are going to have the great privilege during the flight of Apollo 11 to have with us here at the CBS News Space Center our very dear old friend, and yours too, Wally Schirra, who has made a flight on every one of our space craft, in the Mercury program, in the Gemini program, in the Apollo program. And Wally's going to be with us for this flight to give us his expertise and a little bit of an inside look on what these astronauts are going through in this most historic mission. And it's just 5 minutes to the historic launch of the Apollo 11, with all going well. Astronauts Armstrong, Collins, and Aldrin sitting there atop the great Saturn rocket in their command module, getting ready for launch. Here's Jack King in launch control.
Counting, Skip Chauvin informing the astronauts that the swing arm now coming back. The test supervisor now has informed launch vehicle test conductor Norm Carlson, you are go for launch. 4 minutes and counting, we are go for Apollo 11.
The engines that generate that thrust combined horsepower equal to 543 jet fighter planes. Their launch vehicle there weighs as much as the submarine Nautilus. They burn 5,662,000 pounds of fuel, the equivalent of 98 railroad tank cars of it, the capacity of a small town's water tank. Liftoff, the noise reaches 120 decibels and has been compared to 8 million hi-fi sets playing at once.
T-minus 3 minutes and counting. T-minus 3, we are go with all elements of the mission at this time. We're on an automatic sequence as the master computer supervises hundreds of events occurring over these last few minutes. The members of the launch team here in the control center monitoring a number of what we call red line values. These are tolerances we don't want to go above and below in temperatures and pressures. They're standing by to call out any deviations from our plans. The vehicle starting to pressurize as far as the propellant tanks are concerned, and all is still go as we monitor our status for it. The target for the Apollo 11 astronauts, the moon, at liftoff will be at a distance of 218,096 miles away. We've just passed the 2-minute mark in the countdown. T-minus 1 minute, 54 seconds, and counting. Our status board indicates that the oxidizer tanks in the second and third stages now have pressurized. All indications coming in to the control center at this time indicate we are go. 1 minute, 25 seconds in the counting on the Apollo mission, the flight to land the first men on the moon. Guidance system goes on internal at 17 seconds, leading up to the ignition sequence at 8.9 seconds. We're approaching the 60-second mark on the Apollo 11 mission. T-minus 60 seconds and counting. Neil Armstrong just reported back. It's been a real smooth countdown. We passed the 50-second mark. Power transfer is complete. We're on internal power with the launch vehicle at this time. Astronauts report it feels good. T-minus 25 seconds. T-minus 15 seconds. Guidance is internal. 12, 11, 10, 9. Ignition sequence starts. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. All engine running. Liftoff. We have a liftoff. 32 minutes past the hour. Liftoff on Apollo 11.
Looks good, Wally.
Somebody must be leaving town.
Building shaking. We're getting that buffeting we've become used to. What a moment. Man on the way to the moon. Like a good trajectory so far, doesn't it, Wally?
Very good, very good. That's...
It was so much different than any other flight that it is hard, I think, this late date to imagine our emotions at the moment. It really was something that had to grip you. It was as if you could have stood at the dock and waved goodbye to Columbus. You knew darn good and well that this was the real history in the making. The thing that made this one particularly gripping was that sense of history, that if this was successful, this was a date that was going to be in all of the history books from time evermore. It was everything else that's happened in our time was going to be an asterisk, really, in the history books. That's the way it's going to be with this trip, and I think we sensed that at the time, just sitting there at the Cape and watching that great beast get on its way, that this was it.
That great beast, driven aloft by 5 engines in the huge first stage, the bottom part, burned all its kerosene and liquid oxygen fuel in 2.5 minutes. By then, it was 38 miles away from the launch pad and traveling more than 6,000 miles per hour. Its job was done, and it was released. So was a big adapter ring that had connected the first stage with the rest of the Saturn rocket. The escape tower was discarded. It would have sprung the astronauts to safety if there had been an accident at the time of liftoff. 4 minutes later, the second stage was fired. That increased the speed to more than 15,000 miles per hour. Then, it too was cut loose. The third stage firing put the Apollo 11 into orbit around the Earth. When it was fired again, the third stage engine increased the speed enough to break the spacecraft free of the Earth's gravity and send it outward to its lunar goal. Then the command and service module, where the 3 astronauts were, was separated, turned around, and driven so it could lock up with the lunar module. the limb. This is film of the Earth and the maneuvering that brought the two Apollo 11 vehicles together. The photography was done from the command module. That's the limb, still carried inside the third stage of the Saturn, moving only slightly more slowly than the approaching craft that will dock with it and free it for its fabulous journey. This is a vivid demonstration of the laws of Kepler and of Newton, whose brilliant insights centuries before guided modern scientists on the paths outward from this planet. The most practical of Newton's discoveries for those involved in spaceflight is that the pull of the Earth's gravity falls off as the distance from the Earth increases, so a great blast is needed to make the first escape from the Earth, but very little power is needed to fly far out. That made the relatively tiny limb practical. After the limb was docked, the third stage was left as space refuse, and the vital remains of Apollo 11 moved inexorably into history.
Good evening. Well, this afternoon, another long television transmission highlighted by the first in-flight glimpse into the lunar landing module. And here's how it went, starting with a view of the hatch between the two spacecraft shortly before lunar landing module pilot Buzz Aldrin opened it.
About to open the hatch now. Right. There's that same guy that when you open up the doorway, he's waiting there for you and he turns the lights on. How about that? It's like the refrigerator.
That light is automatic like a refrigerator light. When the door opens, it turns on.
Conversation between Charlie Duke and Mike Collins referring to the automatic light that comes on in the LEM when the hatch is opened.
Hey, that's a great shot right there. We see you in there. Guess that's Neil and Mike.
That's looking back up from
anyway.
back up from the lunar module up into the command module. A wonderful shot. At this point, they were 203,000 miles from the Earth. The windows in the LEM, those two triangles through which the lunar module pilot, Buzz Aldrin, on the right, and when he is in the LEM, Neil Armstrong, the flight commander, on the left, look through. There you see the silvery form of the command module, in which a moment ago you saw Mike Collins and Neil Armstrong up through the docking hatch.
That's a good view through the overhead. That's a great shot now that we're getting of the helmet, of the EVA visor, and also the EVA gloves in the background.
The gloves can stand that 250-degree heat on the moon. These visors are to protect against the glare of the sun, which of course is not interrupted in any way by an atmosphere on the moon, so it is powerful.
You got a pretty big audience that's live in the U.S., it's going live to Japan, Western Europe, and much of South America. Everybody reports very good color. Appreciate the great show.
And it protects against the impact of micrometeoroids, which also, unimpeded by atmosphere, strike the moon's surface and will strike the astronauts. These little tiny pin specks of meteor material at as much as 1,000 feet per second. High impact velocity, like bullets from a gun. Greater than that, of course, by far.
Al, that's a good view of Mr. Collins down there. We finally see him again. Hello there, Earthling. Hello there. 11, Houston, if that's not the Earth, we're in trouble.
For more than 90% of its long journey, the Apollo 11 continued to lose speed until it got to where the moon's gravitational pull exceeded that of the Earth. A 6-minute blast of its engine slowed the reversed craft and put it into lunar orbit. On July 19th, the day before the scheduled landing, the explorers circled the moon 12 times, carefully surveying the designated landing site, happily recognizing landmarks they had studied for months. From an altitude of 100 miles, they transmitted live television of the arid spectacle that was the target of their search and the focal point for many millions of armchair astronauts. The authentic astronauts stayed busy with household chores and equipment checks and a few hours of sleep. On the 10th orbit, After circling the moon for nearly 20 hours, Armstrong and Aldrin moved into the limb, tested all the systems and devices, and put on their pressure suits, the environments they would bring to the moon. At 11 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time on Sunday, July 20th, the longest scheduled program in the so far short history of television came on the air from a control room in this same building. It was to end 32 hours later at 7 p.m. Monday, July 21st. Early in that long broadcast, the astronauts of Apollo 11 would repeat many maneuvers done by other Apollo explorers through nearly 2 years of flights. As before, the lunar module would separate from the command and service module. Apollo 11 would become two vehicles, Columbia with Mike Collins and Eagle with Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin. This time, though, the LIM would move toward the moon with men intent on landing. An unprecedented trip to the unknown would take place, all of it reported live by radio from 250,000 miles away. And there were plans for live television transmissions from the moon when Armstrong and Aldrin walked there. An enormous audience was waiting.
Back in our CBS News space headquarters in New York, and we're approaching one of the critical moments of this flight. At 1:46 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time, and that should be just 2.5 minutes from now, the spacecraft should again come around the near side of the moon on its 13th revolution and be in touch again by telemetry at least, the voice communication to come just a short while later with the Manned Space Center in Houston. At that time, the command module and the lunar module will begin undocking. The lunar module cutting itself free from the command module, beginning the maneuvers which in 2 hours and 32 minutes from now should place it on the surface of the moon. So on this acquisition of signal, Houston will be as tense as these cool scientists, engineers, technicians at Houston can get, waiting for this important maneuver, the undocking of the command module and the lunar module. And we'll stand by waiting to hear from Houston on that acquisition of signal.
Hello, Eagle, Houston, we're standing by, over.
The call to Eagle is to the lunar module. The command module's call word is Columbia.
Roger, Eagle, undocked.
Roger, how does it look? Neil?
Eagle has wings.
Roger.
Looking good.
Roger, Neil, we got a...
They're getting a little poetic.
Data,
The
we got
report
the
that Eagle has wings. That's not bad. It is a little bit like leaving the nest, this lunar module leaving the command module. The lunar module, which itself cannot fly in Earth environment, land on the Earth, to re-enter the Earth's atmosphere. It is truly a space vehicle, can only operate in this gravity of the moon and in the moon's environment. Mike Collins in the command module takes a good look at the lunar module, checks it out by visual observation, advises the crew of the lunar module, Armstrong and Aldrin, that they look good, it is hoped, and advises the ground of that as well.
Particularly on the deployment of the landing gear. This is where they take a good look to see.
Do this without the firing thrusters, Mike?
What they're discussing here is the examination I just mentioned. Mike will look over the landing gear struts, each one in turn, to be sure they're properly fixed.
Go ahead, Houston. Eagle is ready to copy.
And now separated, they should be seeing the Earthrise on the far side of the lunar horizon, 248,000 miles away. 5,200 feet, less than a mile from the moon's surface.
Manual attitude control is good.
Roger, copy.
Altitude 4,200.
Houston, you're a go for landing, over.
Oh, great go.
Roger, understand. Go for landing. 3,000 feet. 19 forward. Altitude, velocity, light. 8.5 down. 220 feet. 13 forward. 11 forward, coming down nicely. 200 feet. 4.5 down. 5.5 down. 160 feet, 6.5 down, 5.5 down. 9 forward. Good. 120 feet. 100 feet, 3.5 down, 9 forward. 5%. 185. Okay, 75 feet. Car's looking good, down a half. 6 forward.
60 seconds.
Lights on. 6. Down 2.5. Forward. Forward. Good. 40 feet, down 2.5. Picking up some dust. 30 feet, 2.5 down. Straight shadow. 4 forward. 4 forward, drifting to the right a little. 20, down a half.
30 seconds.
Forward, just. Good. Okay. Contact light. Engine arm on.
We're home.
Man on the moon.
Houston,
Oh, jeez.
Tranquility Base here. The Eagle has landed.
Roger, Tranquility. We copy you on the ground. You got a bunch of guys about to turn blue. We're breathing again. Thanks a lot.
Ooh. Oh, boy.
Thank you.
Boy.
Okay, we're going to be busy for a minute. Houston, that may have seemed like a very long final phase. The auto-targeting was taking us right into a football field-sized crater with a large number of big boulders and rocks for about 1 or 2 crater diameters around it. And it required us going in P-66 and flying manually over the rock field to find a reasonably good area.
Oh, boy.
Roger, we copy. It was beautiful from here. Tranquility, over.
So Neil Armstrong took control, threw it out of the automatic mode, put it on manual, and flew the spacecraft looking out the window over that field.
Around here.
Roger, Tranquility. Be advised, there are lots of smiling faces in this room and all over the world, over.
You know what really is getting to me right now? The justification.
Up here.
Two
Roger,
smiling
it was a
faces.
beautiful job, you guys. And don't forget one in the command module.
Mrs. Armstrong, what were your feelings at the moment that Apollo 11 was coming toward the moon?
When it was coming toward the moon, well, I was just hoping and praying everything would go well. That was my feelings.
And a touchdown?
And when it touched down, I must say, praise God, from whom all blessings flow.
Mr. Armstrong.
Very, very thankful that there was a successful landing.
Were there any moments of concern watching it on television in your home?
No, it was all going so well. We were very comforted.
Yes, we were faithful in the
Yes.
successful landing.
And you are going to stay up through the night and listen to the squawk box.
Oh, yeah. Aren't you all?
Thank you very much.
No, when I was married, that was the greatest moment of my life.
Well, this day is Eric Severide, I guess, our biggest story. We're contemporaries, and we've covered World War II together and the conflicts since then and the coming and goings of heads of state. But nothing compares with this, I don't think.
No, I think, Walter, sometimes it is easier to be an active participant in a world shaking things like this than an observer who can only sit. At least it's easier on the nerve ends. The thing that got us all downstairs in another office watching this in those last few minutes and seconds was the steadiness of those voices of those two men. This lean prose of Armstrong, not a wasted word. He said precisely the words and the figures that he had to recite, that had to be known, no more. In an absolutely dead calm voice, and yet that prosaic conversation. I suppose those words, ordinary as they sounded, are going to be reread and re-listened to for maybe 100 years. And As an old-fashioned humanist, it seemed to me a little reassuring that in those last seconds the human hand and eye had to take over from the computers. If I understood exactly what was going on in that lunar module. Otherwise, I gathered, if it had all been computerized at the last second, we might have wrecked this Santa Maria on a rock.
Here's a report from CBS newsman Bob Simon at Trafalgar Square, where he joined the thousands who watched an immense television screen as the Apollo touched down on the moon.
People here have been feeling this very deeply, and the main reaction after touchdown was, my God, could it really have been so easy?
I think it's just wonderful to be on Earth and to live what's going on the moon, and I pray God for these people, and I thank the Americans also for what they've done for the world, and that's what I have to say. I'm very proud of the Americans.
I take my hat off. I take my hat off. I take my hat off.
We were aware that there was still a long way to go, they had to open up that limb and at that moment be exposed to the environment of the moon as well as the environment of space to which they'd already been exposed on the outside. But now they were going to be testing their suits for the first time in that environment. And you got to appreciate there's just no way to do that on the face of the Earth. We've never been able to create a state of non-gravity on Earth. They were going to be in their suits and testing that. They were going to be testing the surface of the moon, and of course the liftoff eventually and getting away from the moon, which was going to be a terribly dangerous part of the trip. So I think that within ourselves, while Wally and I couldn't help being excited about that moment, as the whole world was, we were still harboring a little bit of fear for the future of the mission. There was another point there at that juncture, incidentally, which had something to do with our reporting of the story. We were obviously hoping we were going to get pictures back from the moon, but that had never been tried before, quite obviously, and we weren't too sure about that.
And we're getting a picture on the TV.
You got a good picture, huh?
There's a great deal of contrast in it, and currently it's upside down on our monitor, but we can make out a fair amount of detail.
There's that foot coming down.
There he is. There's a foot coming down the steps.
Okay, Neil, we can see you coming down the ladder now. Neil, we can see you coming. Okay, I just checked getting back up to that first step. That isn't collapsed too far, but it's adequate to get back up. Roger, we copy. It's a pretty good little jump. I'm at the foot of the ladder. The LEM footpads are only depressed in the surface about 1 or 2 inches, although the surface appears to be very, very fine-grained as you get close to it. It's almost like a powder. Ground mass is very fine.
Boy, look at those pictures. Wow. It's a little shadowy, but he said he expected that in the shadow of the lunar module. Armstrong is on the moon. Neil Armstrong, 38-year-old American, standing on the surface of the moon on this July 20th, 1969.
That's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
I think that was Neil's quote. I didn't understand it.
No, one small step for man, but I didn't get the second phrase. One of our monitors here at our space headquarters is able to hear that. We'd like to know what it was.
The surface is fine and powdery. I can pick it up loosely with my toe. It does adhere in fine layers, like powdered charcoal, to the skull and insides of my boots.
His quote was, "That's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind."
I can see the footprints of my boots and the treads in the fine sandy particles.
Neil, this is Houston. We're copying.
Oh, thank you, television, for letting us watch this one.
Isn't this something? 240 miles, 1,000 miles out there in the moon, and we're seeing this
There
history
seems
being
to be
made.
no difficulty in moving around as we suspected. It's even perhaps easier than the simulations of 16G that we performed in various simulations on the ground. Absolutely no trouble to walk around.
See, that's good news. This is like a clothesline. He's going to bring down the Hasselblad camera with him now. I think that's the one that was lowered to him for still pictures. It's not the sequence camera, which I believe stays in the lunar module.
Roger, Neil, we're reading you loud and clear. Let's see, getting some pictures and the contingency sample.
I think that the flight plan actually called for him to take the contingency sample first and then the pictures. As I recall, all of my reading of the plan up to now, the contingency sample went first.
35 and a half minutes of PLSS time expended now.
Take some of my first pictures here.
This is Houston. Did you copy about the contingency sample? Over.
All right, you're going to get to that just as soon as I finish these picture series.
And
okay, you're going to get the contingency sample there. Right.
Now Aldrin's been bugging him for it. Commander's going to get tired of those kibitzers in a minute and get them a contingency sample just to quiet them. Nag, nag, nag.
Okay, the contingency sample is down, and it's a little difficult to dig through the initial crust.
Very interesting. It's a very soft surface, but here and there where I plug with the contingency sample collector, I run into very hard surface.
You know, he's got this little sort of bag on a sharp rim that he's dragging along with an extension handle across the surface.
It has a stark beauty all its own. It's like much of the high desert of the United States. It's different, but it's very pretty out here.
Okay, I'm on the top step, and I can look down over the RCU and landing gear pad. It's a very simple matter to hop down from one step to the next.
There he comes.
Yes, I found it to be very comfortable, and walking is also very comfortable. You've got 3 more steps and then a long one.
Watch that last step.
I guess he expected that strut to compact a little bit more, but as a result, it's a long step from
Okay,
there.
I'm going to leave that 1 foot up there and both hands down about the 4th rung up. There you go.
Welcome home.
And now we have 2 Americans on the moon.
A little more. About another inch. There, you got it? That's a good step. Yep. About a 3-footer.
3-foot first step with 1/6 gravity, and look at that. It's like being on a...
Beautiful view. Isn't that something? Magnificent sight out here. Magnificent desolation.
They're taking the cover off of the stainless steel plaque mounted on one leg
If you
there.
haven't read the plaque, we'll read the plaque that's on the front landing gear of this LEM. There's 2 hemispheres, one showing each of the 2 hemispheres of Earth. Underneath it says, "Dear men from the planet Earth, first set foot upon the moon, July 1969 AD. It came in peace for all mankind. It has the crew members' signatures and the signature of the President of the United States.
Oh, boy.
Tell me if you got a picture, Houston.
Well, we've got a beautiful picture, Neil.
Let's try it like that for a while.
Buzz is erecting the solar wind experiment now.
Solar wind, of course, is not a wind as we know it on Earth here. That is something you feel against your cheek. It's a flow of protons from the sun. There it is, a U.S. flag on the surface of the moon.
Yes, indeed.
Started out behind time on this
I
and
guess you're
caught
about
up.
the only person around that doesn't have TV coverage of the scene.
That's all right, I don't mind a bit.
Hank Collins says he doesn't mind a bit not having television right now.
How is the quality of the TV?
Oh, it's beautiful, Mike. It really is. They've got the flag up now, and you can see the stars and stripes on the lunar surface.
Beautiful, just beautiful.
That flag is on a frame. There is no wind to hold it out like that, of course. It's a 3x5 flag, and it's got a frame of its own to hold it out. I think they're taking pictures of each other with a Hasselblad camera.
Yep.
Exactly what they're doing. The first tourists on the moon. From their description, it sounds like someplace we might want to go after all. Aldrin called it magnificent desolation, Armstrong's stark beauty all its own.
Roger, we'd like to get both of you in the field of view of the camera for a minute.
Yeah, I think something rather important is coming up here.
Neil and Buzz, the President of the United States is in his office now and would like to say a few words to you. Over.
That would be an honor.
Go ahead, Mr. President. This is Houston out.
Hello, Neil and Buzz. I'm talking to you by telephone from the Oval Room at the White House. And this certainly has to be the most historic telephone call ever made from the White House. I just can't tell you how proud we all are of what you have done. For every American, this has to be the proudest day of our lives. And for people all over the world, I am sure that they too join with Americans in recognizing what an immense feat this is. Because of what you have done, the heavens have become a part of man's world.
Thank you, Mr. President. It's a great honor and privilege for us to be here representing not only the United States, but men of peace of all nations, and with interest and a curiosity and with a vision for the future. Honor for us to be able to participate here today.
This is Houston. It's about time for you to start your EVA closeout activities.
Roger.
There he goes. Look at that leap. He went up a couple of steps in the one leap.
And we got about, I'd say 20 pounds of carefully selected, if not documented, samples.
Houston, Roger, well done. Out.
At the second box.
Unofficial time off the surface at 1:11:37:32.
Now start arching your back. That's good. Plenty of room. There, all right. Arch your back a little. Your head's up against it. Out. Roll right just a little bit. Down. And in good shape. Thank you. Now move your foot and I'll get the hatch.
Roger, Columbia, this is Houston, reading you loud and clear on Omni Charlie. The crew of Tranquility Base is back inside their base. Everything went beautifully. Over.
Hallelujah.
Tranquility Base, this is Houston. Over.
Roger, go ahead.
We'd like to say from all of us down here in Houston, and really from all of us in all the countries and in the entire world, we think that you've done a magnificent job up there today. Over.
Thank you very much.
long day. Yes, indeed. Get some rest there and have at it tomorrow.
Man has landed there, and man has taken his first steps there. I wonder, Eric Severide, just what there is to add to that.
In this new world, in this new reality, and the quickness of the adjustment of the human body and nervous system from the weight of gravity on Earth just the other day when we were in the Cape to weightlessness for several days and to the moon's 1/6 gravity, and somehow it adjusts with that speed and totally different elements. This overwhelms you. And then when they moved around, you had a sense of that they were in a condition of joy. I never expected to see them bound, did you? Everything we'd been told was that they would move with great care, foot after foot, with great deliberation, that they might fall. And here they were, like children playing hopscotch almost. For
Like colts almost, when they find their legs.
Finding their legs, exactly. And what we thought was cold and desolate and forbidding. Somehow they found a strange beauty there that I suppose they can never really describe to us. Or will we ever know?
And it may not be a beauty that can pass on to future beholders either. These first men on the moon have seen something that men who follow will miss just a smidgen of at any rate.
They've peered into another life that we can't follow.
Small television sets are now becoming commonplace at bases in Vietnam, no matter how remote. And the GIs have been following Apollo just as they would in the United States. What do you think of two men landing on the surface of the moon?
Well, I would say it's certainly the most fantastic event of my lifetime, certainly. And in the end, I believe somewhere around $25 billion has been spent on the space program to reach the moon. Man will have to decide whether he could have poured more money, say, into the cities, the slums, urban renewal, or into the war effort here.
Well, it really didn't impress me too much until today, when I was talking to a former Viet Cong who works for my company. I was talking to him through an interpreter, and we were trying to explain to him the United States is putting a man on the moon. And as much as we explained to him, he just refused to believe it was possible. And it really hit home at this time that the United States is accomplishing a fantastic feat.
Pope Paul VI has felt the thrill. At the Vatican's splendidly equipped observatory near his summer residence at Castel Gandolfo, Pope Paul followed the events of the unbelievable night. Like thousands of other Italians, he followed them with a sense of warm and intimate participation, watching the all-night coverage and hearing the commentaries on Italian television. And like thousands of others, waiting for the tremendous news of the safe landing, the announcer's exclamation, "Ha toccato," it's touched down.
I suppose the Pope, in all of his knowledge, and I'm sure he had a great deal about the space program, must have, as he exulted in that landing and then the success up to that date, that moment, must have also had some apprehension about getting the men back. If he didn't, he certainly should have, because that was the critical moment. Getting down on the moon, of course, was tough. The walk was tough. They were all the first time ever, clearly. But now we had to get them back. And there'd been no opportunity to test the LEM, the Lunar Excursion Module, in the environment of the moon. We didn't know what all of that dust might do, and there was more of that, incidentally, in landing than I think anybody had really anticipated. The moon experts had talked about a lot of debris of that nature flying around, but that cloud was pretty intensive. And the idea that it might have in some way damaged the propulsion devices to get those men off the moon, I think must have occurred to all of us from time to time as we waited that next and most critical moment, the firing of the LEM rockets to propel it up to meet the command ship up above them.
I don't suppose we've been this nervous about a liftoff since back in the early days of Mercury, Wally. When we hear these words from Terry White, "We have liftoff," that'll be a great sigh of relief.
9, 8, 7, 6, 5, port stage, engine arm ascent, proceed.
6, 36 feet per second up. 5 foot of pitch over.
Engines firing, they're on the way.
Very quiet ride. There's that one crater on there.
1,000 feet high, 80 feet per second vertical rise.
Oh, boy. Hot diggity dog,
We're
huh?
off and running now.
Yes, sir.
Eagle Houston, to request manual start override.
Their words beautiful with the firing, then very smooth, and then very quiet ride. Armstrong and Aldrin.
You're looking good.
After just short of 22 hours on the moon's surface, on the way back now to rendezvous with Mike Collins orbiting overhead. This is the next to last checkpoint before the actual docking.
Okay, Mike. I'll try to get position here, and then you got it.
That's from Aldrin, Buzz Aldrin, the pilot of the lunar module, saying, try to get position here, and then you've got it.
I've stopped. Matter of fact, I can stop right here if you like that.
Buzz Aldrin lining up the lunar module, saying he can stop there if Collins likes that position for his maneuver to come in and dock. The docking procedures begin now. As you pointed out, Wally, we've done these dockings many times now, and this should not be a particularly dangerous part of flight, since we have proved out the system so many times, but that doesn't keep us from having the sweaty palm again as we wait for the accomplishment of docking and knowing they're really locked in there together.
Of course, we know that Mike has a boatload of fuel there, because he had enough to pick them up out of an orbit as low as 10 miles above the moon. So he
I'm not going to do a thing, Mike. I'm just letting her hold an attitude hold.
Okay, there's Mike. They're both talking.
Aldrin's job now is just to maintain the position, the proper attitude, with Mike to close in slowly at about a third of a mile an hour, I think.
Very, very slow. Yes, indeed. The LEM or Eagle is really flying under automatic control now for attitude, just sitting there dormant. It's now, as we use the word, passive, and Mike is flying the command module to close.
I'm pumping up cabin pressure.
Oh, they must be docked, because he's pumping up cabin pressure.
Yeah. They're equalizing cabin pressure. They are docked and hard docked.
Yes. The way I understand... Here we go. We'll get a story.
Apollo 11, Houston, go.
Good, and call up from Houston, Apollo 11.
Okay, Ron, thank you.
Apollo 11, meaning that they're no longer Columbia and Eagle, but they are docked again in that configuration.
Almost everything yet to be done by the Apollo 11 astronauts had been done earlier by Apollo travelers, but one thing was wonderfully unique. The crew of the Eagle had to move themselves and their priceless cargo of moon rock samples into the vehicle that had been known as Columbia. Then, the part of the LEM that had carried them from the moon was discarded, just as the LEM stage that had brought them to Tranquility Base was left behind. The Command and Service Module fired its engine at 12:56 a.m. on Tuesday, July 22nd, to get itself out of lunar orbit. Then the reunited trio of Voyagers was truly on its way home, 2 days away. The speed of the homeward-bound Apollo increased as it got nearer the Earth. At 25,000 miles per hour, the service module was dropped away. A heat shield protected the command module as it plunged into the atmosphere, its first contact with air in 8 days. The small craft and its remarkable crew were all that remained of the original 3,000 tons of rocket and cargo and fuel that shook the Earth and ignited the imaginations of millions.
My golly, they've got a visual contract from Orion 3. They're seeing this glowing re-entry like a comet coming back to the Earth's atmosphere. Now they're beginning to feel G-force for the first time right now in 8 days since they lifted off from The Cape.
At least
That's
Mike,
plenty.
we can say that about Mike. The other two felt some G.
Well, that's right. That's
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
1/6G. Forgot about their going to the moon's surface.
Yeah.
I don't mean I forgot about their going to the moon's surface. Take that back. Hot dog. There they are. And they're obviously all right. The chutes have deployed. Aircraft has visual on the chutes. Hot dog. Apollo 11 has made it. Splashdown should be just now.
They're back from the moon.
Oh, boy.
Astronauts Armstrong, Aldrin, and Collins landing in the Pacific Ocean, southwest of Hawaii.
Apollo 11 is back from the moon, safe and sound. The crew is just reported to Air Boss as they rest in their command module there on the surface of the Pacific that they're in fine shape. Aboard the aircraft carrier Hornet, President Nixon is waiting to greet the returned astronauts. Let's listen to Dallas Townsend aboard the Hornet. Dallas?
And the first astronaut is coming out.
That would be Buzz Aldrin, wouldn't it, Dallas?
I believe so, yes. Recovery helicopter number 66 will come down slowly overhead, and the net will be lowered by means of a winch from the hatch on the starboard side of the helicopter. And the astronauts will be brought aboard the helicopter one after the other by means of that net.
There he goes. The last astronaut going up. Third astronaut is now in the helicopter. The door is closed, and the helicopter is going to come back to the ship now.
This is the first time in history that the President of the United States has been on board the recovery carrier to greet the returning astronauts.
Recovery complete. Shut down. Have all your prayers been answered?
Yes. I would like to say to the President, to the Presidents of the United States, President Nixon, President Johnson, President Kennedy, to all of NASA, to all of the contractors that have helped to make this flight successful, to the astronaut crew, to the men, the three men who made this historic flight, and to all the peoples of the world, we thank you for everything, your prayers, your thoughts, just everything. And if anyone were to ask me how I could describe this flight, I can only say that it was absolutely out of this world.
Dr. Carpentier slides it open, and here they come.
Man's dream and a nation's pledge have now been fulfilled.
I believe that this nation should commit itself to achieving the goal before this decade is out of landing a man on the moon and returning him safely to the Earth. No single space project in this period will be more impressive to mankind or more important for the long-range exploration of space, and none will be so difficult or expensive to accomplish.
The lunar age has begun. We may hope, but we should not believe in the excitement of today that the next trip or the ones to follow are going to be particularly easy. But we have begun with a small step for man, a giant leap for mankind, in Armstrong's unforgettable words. In these 8 days of the Apollo 11 mission, the world was witness to not only the triumph of technology, but to the strength of man's resolve and the persistence of his imagination. Through all time, the moon has endured out there, pale and distant, determining the tides, the tugging of the heart, a symbol, a beacon, a goal. Now man has prevailed. He's landed on the surface of the moon, he's stabbed into its crust, he's stolen some of its soil to bring back in a tiny treasure ship to perhaps unlock some of its secrets. The date's now indelible. It's going to be remembered as long as man survives. July 20th, 1969, the day man reached and walked on the moon. The least of us is improved by the things done by the best of us, because if we are not able to land, at least we are able to follow. Armstrong, Aldrin, and Collins are the best of us, and they've led us further and higher than we ever imagined we were likely to go.
We had indeed, more than 600 million of us, been taken further and higher than we could have imagined. And now we know some things we didn't know in those summer days of 1969. In his masterful takeover of the controls, Neil Armstrong landed the Eagle with something less than 10 seconds of fuel left. He and Buzz Aldrin were that close to a probably disastrous crash. And they and all the men and machines at the Space Center in Houston did not know just where they were on the foreign surface of the moon. They needed to know precisely to plot the rendezvous with Mike Collins in Columbia that would bring them home. It took more than 4 hours to compute the exact place. The footprints left by Armstrong and Aldrin will last no more than 500,000 years, wiped out by the relentless impact of micrometeorites. And there is this poignant thought. No one, not even the explorers themselves, heard a wonderful crunch of their boots in the sandy environment where there is no atmosphere to transmit sound. The silence persists, and so, of course, does memory. In time, shared memory is known as history. Surely, we shared something grand.
Liftoff. We have a liftoff. What a moment. Man on the way to the moon.
Houston,
Oh, jeez.
Tranquility Base here. The Eagle has landed. That's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
They're back from the moon. Astronauts Armstrong, Aldrin, and Collins landing in the Pacific Ocean, southwest of Hawaii.
And if anyone were to ask me how I could describe this flight, I can only say that it was absolutely out of this world.
Oh, boy.